There is that much scarier question of like, where on earth is love gonna come from? But you do eventually get to that point where you become weirdly grateful for your breakup. It will happen when you least expect it. Honestly, when you least expect it, when you're not concentrating on finding love, it will come into your life. And you think, how? Are they gonna break into my house? Am I gonna fall in love with my postman? My DPD driver? Amazon delivery guy? My Tesco food shop, the person that serves me on the Tesco, the counter. I hate it. It's so annoying. Being single today at 33 proves one thing to me. I am single today at 33. It does not prove that I'm going to be single when I'm 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. It proves that I am single today. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. I hope we're all okay. Sorry for my absence last week. I felt like I was on like a downward spiral of running out of content ideas and showing up, and I hate this word, showing up authentically online. Sometimes when you are creating so much content, like me, I put out so much content. When I actually break it down, I laugh sometimes because I'm like, I really do not give myself the benefit of the doubt with how much content I actually put out on the internet. And sometimes I think, like, I reckon artists go through this as well, but you do go through a creative block. Now, I've only ever had 2 of these whilst in my content creation career, and one of them was really bad, and that was because I was trying to find more of a flow state with like what I wanted to put out on the internet, and I was trying to change my content whilst trying to like do something that wasn't me. And I think that's what I was struggling with last week. I was trying to create content on TikTok that was ticking TikTok's boxes, not my own. And I think I just got into a position where I was creating content that I actually didn't believe in. Now, the most annoying thing was I actually recorded 60 videos in one day. And what's really good at the moment with content, and I would encourage everybody to get into content creation if that's the line that you wanted to go down. If you see all these creators online creating content and think, I could do that, do it. But I hate the advice like, just start. There has to be some sort of strategy behind it. And also, at the minute, it's so easy because talking head content is taking over the world, and like FaceTime content is literally taking over. And it was really hard, and I wanted to film in my car. I want my car to become like my signature place of recording. It was just too hot. And so I ended up recording in another place that it just wasn't flowing. And then I all of a sudden just hit this big fat block where I was like, I don't know what I'm creating. I don't know who my audience is. I don't know what I'm doing. And I did know all those things. I was just panicking because I was trying to fit into a like sort of niche of people that wasn't my sort of content. And I think it's hard. Content is hard. Creating content is hard. When you get the hang of it, it's easy, and you do have to keep up with trends. And so like how I've said, you know, that talking head content is massive at the moment. It is. You do have to jump on that bandwagon. When quotes were really big, my content on TikTok just excelled because that was what the algorithm was favouring. It's now favouring people that are building like personal brands, and the algorithm likes to know what your content is about. So like I follow social media managers that tell you not to niche down, and then I follow social media managers that tell you to niche down. I do think having a niche is important. I think when people start creating content that's like all over the place, that's kind of where you get lost. So like it would be like me having this breakup account that I have and talking about healing and breakups, and then adding in, oh, and by the way, like I went on a road trip in the summer and we traveled to here and here, and this is like what I got up to. And or like if you had, say, I don't know, a beauty or a hairdressing account, and you started randomly posting about something totally outside that area, people are going to get confused with what your content's about. And I have, in the last year, really niched down, and like I've said and shown it before and said, I used to show what I used to get up to in my daily life, and I used to say, this is what I've had for breakfast, and this is what I did on my morning walk this morning, and blah 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 blah. I've completely cut that out now, and that more aligns with the life that I am hopefully going forward and building now, which was like totally offline but completely online, because I wouldn't have an income if I didn't show up online. However, I don't want my entire life to be online. I've been there, done that, had to sit and delete my entire life off of social media, and I refuse to do it ever again. And I think some people think that is weird for me, because they're like, wow, you share a really personal journey that you went on. And that is the whole point to building a business. When you build a business around helping people, you kind of have to talk about the same thing all the time. The reason why I've grown so much on social media is because I talk about my story so much. Not because I was like, oh, do you know what? A year ago, I was actually okay. And a year ago, my life completely changed. And now I've healed from my breakup, and now I'm completely fine, And I always use the book analogy. Would you pick up a book and look and go, oh my God, this was written in 2012? Why are people still talking about this book? Like, she got over her divorce in 2012. So I don't know why she's still promoting a book about her divorce. Because it's still relevant. It still helps people. And I think that's why, not blowing smoke up my own backside, but I think that's why my content has always landed quite well, because unfortunately, a lot of people go through breakups on the daily, and I pick up messages that are like, Lou, my ex walked out on me last night and you landed on my For You page. Social media is a fabulous tool for promoting and advertising. It's free advertising. If I wanted to start a podcast and I didn't have any social media, where the hell would I broadcast it? Where would I advertise it? Where would people know that I had this podcast? So I had a little bit of a mental block. I didn't want to become a person that was posting about breakups and then completely losing track of what I was posting online. And when people have come to me and said, I wanted to start a fitness account, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, I'm like, why have you got a fitness account documenting your latest trip to Mykonos? That's not what people are here for. People are here for your fitness. So it's always confused me when people kind of step over into a different sort of niche within their social media account. I've never really got that, but you could argue the toss that I came from a running account to a breakup account, but somewhere along the lines they did go hand in hand, and they still very much do. So yeah, I just needed a bit of a break last week. I also went to my best friend's wedding, and I was on such a high, and it was so amazing. Honestly, one of the most gorgeous weddings I've ever been to in the UK. And I think I was on a bit of a come down on that. It was a bit it was so much fun, so high. It went over to Monday, and I got to Monday, I got to Tuesday, and I was like, oh. And I think it's because I've been waiting for it for the whole year, and God knows what she feels like. Anyway, yeah, thank you for bearing with me just whilst I got back into my creative flow and realised that people are here because I help them. And yes, like I said, you do have to keep up with the algorithm. You do have to do what Instagram tells you to do. However, sometimes you do just need to find your own flow. And I feel like I'm back now, and I feel like I am going into next week with reposting back on TikTok, feeling confident in my content that I have made. So if you don't follow me on TikTok, that was a massive plug. Go follow me on TikTok. I've got a very big goal for the end of the year. I want to double my following. So we've got 5 months to get another 225,000 followers. Can she do it? Yeah. Of course she can. Anything's possible. Anyway, I put a question box on my Instagram the other day asking people what they were scared of or struggling with, or what they needed advice about. And my God, I would say that my audience is between the ages of 28 and 38, I'd say. I've got some young'uns on there, and I've got some people that are over the age of 38. I've got some 18-year-olds, I've got some 50-year-olds, but a lot of my audience are between the ages of, I'd say, 28 and 38. And so many people were like, Lou, help me with being single. Like, I am so scared about the timeline of my life. And don't get me wrong, the other day I had the most hilarious conversation. Well, it wasn't really funny, it was quite morbid, with my two sisters. My eldest sister doesn't really talk about stuff like this, so it took us by surprise, to say the least. She said that just all of a sudden got this massive fear of dying. And I was like, why? Where the hell's that come from? And she was like, I don't know, but I didn't like it. It wasn't nice. I haven't enjoyed it. And I was like, right, okay, can we do anything? And my middle sister was making jokes. And I was like, no, I genuinely think she's struggling. I genuinely think she's struggling with this. And so like we tried to help her. And I'd said, the other day, I think I got, oh no, that was right, my water bill the other day, Severn Trent hounding me, which is so rude. Like, we have been in the middle of a drought, but for some reason my direct debit hasn't been going out, and so I have been slapped with a bill for about the past, I want to say about 4 months. And I was like sat there thinking, what would they do if I didn't pay this? And then I was thinking they'd probably send the bailiffs around. But who are the bailiffs? And what are they doing? We live on a floating rock at the end of the day. Who made all these rules? And I didn't get to the point of like the fear of death. But like I did kind of question a lot. So I was like trying to soothe her mind with that and all the rest of it. And I think sometimes when you sit and you think about the timeline of your life, it can be overwhelming. At the minute, I am not struggling with, because I'm not, but I have thought about a lot my parents' age. And I think because they spent 15 years thinking that I had met the love of my life, was going to be with the same person for the rest of my life, and it just hasn't worked out like that. I think they would love to see me walk down the aisle. They would love to see me have children. And don't get me wrong, they're 100% going to see me do that. But you do get a little bit nervous about the timeline of their lives as well. Like, my parents are 70. They were 70 this year. They have 100% got another 20 years in them, without a shadow of a doubt. And within those 20 years, I will have got married and potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, have children, and they will see that. You do sometimes have to break your life down into months, but I think it's very easy to make yourself feel incredibly nervous about the years of your life, not actually remembering that there's 365 days in a year. That's a lot. And like when you break it down into months, that's like 30 days in a month. And that's huge. And when I think about how much my life has changed in 4 years, in another 4 years, it's going to have changed massively again. And in another 4 years, my parents will only be 74. So yes, the timeline of your life can really consume you sometimes, but I'm going to sit and talk to you guys about being single, and not in a way that's like newly single, like really heartbroken or desperately seeking love. I'm going to talk to you about where I would say that I sat a year ago, where you actually really like the life you've built, and you like your routines, and you like where you live, and you like your hobbies, and you don't want to start anything new, and you've got your friendship circles, and you just really love where you are heading. However, the occasional thought creeps in of like, where am I going to meet somebody? Because let's face it, when you get to like 35, 36, 37, 38, you're not 22 anymore. You're actually really far away from 22. Sorry to be the person that breaks it to you, but I mean, the way that I live my life is questionable. I actually do live like a 33-year-old and not a 22-year-old. I think I live more like a 22-year-old now than I did when I was 22. But you aren't going to university, you aren't starting a new job, you aren't surrounded by loads and loads of new people. And you know what? I was thinking this more so these days as well, like with COVID, so many people work from home. I was solely based from home from the middle of 2020. I've not worked in an office for 6 years. And when I think back to when I worked in an office, so many people would come and go through those office doors. I would meet so many people on site. I would meet so many people through my job. When I talk to my friends who don't work at home, they meet so many people and they have like a really vibrant working life. But I know some people are like me where they also work at home. So it's like, well, where are you going to meet somebody if you are working at home? Your friendship circle's small, all your friends are married. I know back in the day when my friends were single, they would be asking me like, hey, Lou, does, your partner or your ex-partner, does he have any single friends? After 30, unless you get into like, the late 30s where some people are getting divorced, you don't really have like the single friend thing anymore either. So underneath like all the really great vibes that you're probably feeling with like getting on your feet, finding this new life, really enjoying being single, which is like me, like really, really enjoyed being single. There is that much scarier question of like, where on earth is love going to come from? So I'm not going to tell you today to go out and get new hobbies. I'm not going to go and tell you to go and sit in a coffee shop. I'm not going to do all of those things because that is not what we're trying to solve here. What we're trying to solve here is how you move forward and your mindset and how you control that sort of like fear and the negative thoughts that come in around not knowing where love's going to come from, and how you're actually going to start living your life when you don't know where the love's going to come from, because I think that is more important. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, at the end of this episode, you're going to feel a little less scared about finding love and where it's going to come from if you are happy with your life and you don't just want to go and randomly join a knitting club or a run club or anything like that. Because yes, whilst I use that as advice because it really helped me and it helped me get out there, I joined an all girls run club for one. So that wasn't going to help, but great way to meet new girls. But it's really irritating advice, so I'm not going to do it. Anyway, without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So let's talk about timeline panic. Now, I know, and I'm going to remind you, and you know, that there isn't necessarily a timeline or a deadline on anything you do in life, but there feels like there is. Now, I'm always very careful about what I say, I think. Contrary to other people's opinions, I think where I can be careful about what I say, I will be careful about what I say. Caveat to this: if you are a woman, I completely understand that we have a biological body clock. I get it. I understand. I know that having children, quite a scary topic of conversation. And I know and I feel very passionate and very strongly about the fact that it is so expensive to freeze your eggs. I understand that there is a form of timeline on your life. However, I don't want to bring that into this conversation because otherwise I would be here for days and scaring you to death. What I will say is that I am not going to be completely tone deaf to it. However, I didn't want women who are listening to this who desperately want children, because I am not there yet. I wouldn't say I am at the desperate point for children. So I find it very difficult to talk about things that I can't relate to, i.e. children being one of them. I didn't have a baby with my ex, thank God. And actually having children wasn't at the forefront of our brains whatsoever in our relationship. That was on both of us. We didn't talk about it. We'd like done the whole like, oh, when we have children, we're going to bring them up on the beach and this is what their names are going to be. But we hadn't spoken about that like 5-year thing. We hadn't got a 5-year plan where children were involved. So I understand. However, I sympathize massively with women who have come out of relationships where, the conversations had started happening about having children, and then obviously they've lost their partner and lost the opportunity to have a child. And I will never forget my mum saying, when you want a baby, it becomes like this big fat burning desire and you can't think of anything other than having a baby. And I am extremely grateful that I was not in that position of my life and that point of my life. I speak to hundreds of women and men, to be fair, because their breakup obviously happened, and so that means that the baby doesn't. I just wanted to say that because I don't want people to listen to this, especially women, and be like, well, there is a timeline because I'm approaching this number and it's going to be harder for me to have children. Like I said, if I was going to tackle that, I would be here for days because there are so many things that I could talk about within that, and I just don't have the capacity to do so. I'm also not experienced or skilled enough, to be quite honest, but I didn't want to not mention it. So moving on from that, I think when you are growing up, 30 sounds really old. And I think when you have lived a life like I did, where you did a lot of adult things in your 20, 30 sounded like, you did all your grafting in your 20s and you chilled out in your 30s. I have found that actually life doesn't work like that. And I am grafting my arse off in my 30s. And I'm so glad that I'm grafting my arse off in my 30s, because I would not have been able to do anything that I'm doing now in my 20s. And that is one, because I was in a relationship and wouldn't be sat having a podcast about going through a breakup. And two, because I have more life experience now. I have my own house. I have my own finances. Feel like I have got more experience to do what I do now. But it feels like there is a deadline on your life, because what you think you should have achieved by the age of 30, 35 or 40, sometimes you aren't actually grieving your relationship. I think you are grieving this timeline that you gave yourself. And you know what? Like I always say, if my life had gone, 30, marriage, 2 years, children, 2 years, moving house, whatever, if it had progressed like that, then great. But it hasn't, and it's given me the opportunity to spread my wings a little bit further and experience things that I wouldn't have experienced if my life had gone through that way. And like I always say, if there was a time in my life where if someone had said, do you want your old life back? I'd have been like, yes, 100%. And now if someone said, do you want your old life back? I would be like, I'd miss out on all these opportunities that have come my way since I've lived my life in a completely different way. No, I wouldn't, because I've had a taste of the other side of life, and I've had a taste of a different side of life that I could never have imagined myself living because of how I lived my previous life. Now, you eventually get to that point, trust me. You might not be there yet, but you do eventually get to that point where you become weirdly grateful for your breakup. And I would say it is weirdly grateful, because I would never wish what I went through on anybody else. But you do become grateful for it, and you do think, God, like, what would my life have looked like? Well, to be fair, I could actually look at my ex's life and see what my life would have looked like. But what would my life would have looked like if my ex hadn't left me? And it's a bit weird now to think about it. Like, it was so normal, and now I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine living like that. So I think you're very much grieving I wanted kids by this age, married by this age, wanted to do this by this age and this by this age. You do have to kind of let go of that. It's the timeline that you've put on your life, and your life isn't that way anymore. It sounds quite hard to do, but it's actually quite easy when you actually realise that the only person that's putting a deadline on your life is you. No one's told you need to do that. No one's told you that you need to have children by this age. No one's told you need to get married by this age, And I think it's so easy for your brain to turn uncertainty into urgency. And what I mean by this is you are so uncertain of where this love's going to come from. You are so uncertain about how your life's going to look. You are so uncertain about where you could end up in the next 4 years because of what has happened to you in the last 4 years, for example. But your brain will turn that uncertainty into like proof and evidence that it's never going to happen for you. It's like that urgency of like, well, if it doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. And I will give you an example of this. when you come home from, I don't know, a wedding or an engagement party, or your friend's just announced that she's pregnant or anything along those lines, you get onto a dating app. The urgency kicks in and you're like, I need to find somebody. And so you're swiping through these dating apps and you're like, I need to find someone, I need to find. You are putting such bad vibes into the universe, for one, because you are acting on like being desperate, and you're not listening or looking to what you're actually doing. You aren't acting because you want to act. You're acting because urgency is telling you to act. And they are two different things. You are just sitting in an uncertain time. You're not sitting in a time of urgency. Like, you aren't sitting in a time where someone's going to turn around and say, do you know what? If you don't do it in the next year, single forever. Like, honestly, you're just going to be single for forever. That's your brain turning the uncertainty and the uncomfortableness of sitting in uncertainty into urgency. Other people's milestones as well will have you in a panic, and it will have you panicking because you'll be thinking, oh my God, everybody's doing this, everyone's getting married, everyone's having children, and I'm stuck here. And you'll do something else as well. You will calculate backwards. For example, if I did this, if I was like, oh, I wanted kids by the time I was 35, which means, you know, I know I want to be married before I have children. So I'd have to have met somebody by the time that I was 34, but I wouldn't want to marry somebody that I didn't know or have children with somebody that I didn't know. So that means I would have to be 33 when I'd met them. So, or 32, and I'm 33 now. And you've already put some blind panic inside yourself because you have got this timeline of where you wanted to do stuff. You are not sitting with your life thinking, hey, do you know what? I would never have given myself this timeline because I never could have imagined my life looking like this. Imagine if I said to myself when I was 25, what are you planning out your life for? Because it's not going to go this way. My 25-year-old self would be like, shut up. Yes, it is. Not like, oh, I'm going to be open-minded. You are on a timeline of a life that was in a relationship, not a single person. And if you are anything like me, and I hope this is like going to be a bit of a light bulb moment for you, you have created your adult timeline before you even adulted. I didn't adult. I was just in a relationship that made me feel like an adult, but I wasn't an adult. I don't think I really live like a true adult now. I mean, I have my own house, but I'm still kind of living the life of like, I'll say it again, a 22-year-old. But you created this original timeline when you were in an adult situation, when you were in a relationship, when you had what society said you should have at your age. You created this timeline before you knew what your single life would contain. And you may have been, you know, single on and off throughout your 20s or like in your teens. But for me, I didn't know what single life contained. I didn't know what being single actually felt like. I didn't know what living a single life would feel like to me. It wasn't something I was familiar with. I only knew one life, and that was in a relationship, and that life just so happened to be quite a mature way of living. And I was always told by my friends' mums that I was the mum of the group. And when people say like, oh, how would your friends describe you? I always say of the mum of the group, because I was always the one that was in the relationship. I was always the one that was home by 12. I was always the one that, you know, didn't move away for university. I was the one planning how to buy a house and planning my kitchen whilst my friends were all on girls' holidays. When I think about it more and more and more, when I deep it more and more and more, I realise that I genuinely did not live a typical teen life or a typical life in my 20s, because I lived the life that everybody is living now in their 30s. And I think that's what annoys me so much, when people are like, oh, she's still doing this, she's still out partying, she's still doing this. Well, yeah, because I spent half my life in a relationship. I didn't spend it being single, gallivanting around, you know. And that's where I've learned not to comment on what other people are doing in their lives. And I used to do this a lot. I used to pass comment on what people were doing in their lives, especially when I was in a relationship, because their lives didn't look like my life. And now I just don't. And it irritates me more now when people comment on other people's lives, because I just think, well, their lives, it's not bothering you. I'm not affecting anyone's life by doing what I'm doing. You just don't agree with what I'm doing because it doesn't look like your life. And like I always say, people project their biggest insecurities onto people, and I've had it recently with my podcast. I've had some backlash on my podcast, and there's been some people locally saying stuff about my podcast and how I show up online and what I say. And I think unless you've listened to all 160 episodes or 164, I can't remember what we're even on now, you cannot pass comment you don't know enough. It really, really bugs me. I'm going to talk about the comments that were made on my podcast, on my Patreon, because we're like a group chat over there. Like, we're really close and I get a lot off my chest over there. So I'm 100% going to bring that up over there. So if you want to know the story and know the background on what has been said by a couple of people that I know, then head on over to there. I mean, they've been blocked, so they probably won't see this, which is great, but we can have a good natter about it over on my Patreon. But anyway, I think that being single at 30 or any age over 30 doesn't mean that you've done relationships wrong. And I think people think that this mindset comes really easy for me. It doesn't. I have to really, really trust the universe. And there have been times where I've laid in bed and thought, where on earth is my husband? Like, where am I going to find him? Like I said in my episode on my Patreon, I didn't have a backup. I wasn't told, or was it over the couple of weeks ago? I wasn't told that we were supposed to have a backup. Like, I only ever had eyes for my ex. So like, this whole, I can't believe you've not found somebody, or she hasn't moved on. Give a girl a break. I wasn't in the conversation that obviously took place without me that I was supposed to have a backup. I didn't. Which always makes people laugh when I talk about it, but I'm genuinely telling the truth. That's how I felt. I didn't have a backup, and no one told me. No one told me we were supposed to have somebody just in case. I didn't have that. Evidently, I was the one that didn't have that. The goal isn't to stop wanting love. That is not the goal here. I see so many girls online telling you to cut yourself off, make your circle smaller, become an ice queen, don't have any feelings, become cold. And it's just the wrong advice. Like, that is advice that I hate. The goal isn't to hate love. The goal isn't to just switch off your feelings. The goal isn't for you to not trust anybody so you never get hurt again. Trust me, like, following my breakup, sometimes I pull in stories from people that I have dated after my ex. I sometimes pull in experience from, having a situationship and having my feelings hurt again. Like, I have been in situations where my feelings have been hurt again. But the goal was never to not get hurt again. The goal was to always be able to say to myself, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. But I am not going to punish my current life and stop living my current life just because I want to find love again. You have to really immerse yourself in this chapter of your life in order to be able to feel confident about finding love again. And that sounds really stupid, because you're like, hold on a second, Lou, like, how can I turn around and say I'm really enjoying my single life when in the back of my mind all I want to do is find love? I mean that like, you can be happily single and living your life and super, super happy and so content, and still be nervous about where you're going to find love and when it's going to show up. Those things can exist together. They can live together in your life. You don't have to constantly be like showing up like, I am really loving being single and single life is amazing and not having any responsibilities is amazing. You don't have to show up like that all the time. Sometimes you might feel like that. Sometimes you might go to an engagement party, go to a baby shower and think, is this ever going to happen for me? And what you do have to do is work on the fact that you know it's going to happen, but you do not want to waste this chapter of your life waiting for that to happen. Okay, so moving on to, okay, Lou, that's all great. Where the hell am I going to meet somebody? And I have to literally, I know my mum gets so much stick on this podcast. Do you know what's the funniest thing? These comments that I've just said that have managed to worm their way back to me. It's really funny because everything comes back to me. I am like an oracle of knowledge with everything. I just find out everything, and I don't really know how I do it, but I just do. Anyway, these comments on my podcast have come back to me, and I live in a very small town. Everybody knows everybody, and I don't know why people don't remember that when they open their mouth and start talking so brazenly about a situation that they don't actually know about. But I get told all the time that all I do is slate my ex on this podcast. And I would love one of my loyalist listeners to comment or send me a message that has listened to over 150 episodes to validate that I do not slag my ex off. For the first 20 episodes of this podcast, I could barely talk about him. I was that distraught about it. So it makes me laugh when people say that I sit and slate my ex on this podcast, because I genuinely don't at all. I just tell the story of what he did, and people disagree with what he did, and that is totally fine, because people might disagree with this whole entire podcast, but it doesn't mean that I'm saying bad things. However, I slate my mum constantly on this podcast. I love her, but I have to say to her all the time, Mum, stop telling me to get myself out there. She is hilarious. She's like, you need to get yourself out there. Get myself out where, Elaine? Where am I going? What am I doing? Who am I meeting? Where do you think I need to be going? Because this economy at the moment is made for two people. My mortgage, my bills, the way I live. I can't be gallivanting off everywhere all the time just to meet somebody, because my bank balance will not allow it. And it's so funny when she says to me like, oh, you just need to get yourself out there, or, you know, do your friends have anybody? And it just makes me laugh when she says like, you need to get yourself out there. And I'm like, get myself out where? Where, Elaine? Where are you talking about? You know, and I think one of the hardest things for me was the fact that because I did all of my relationship in my 20s and was single in my 30s, my friends are all settled, and they all have partners, they all have children, and I love that. However, it makes going out really hard. And I know he won't mind me saying this, but my best friend is gay, and so sometimes going out with him, we do the gay scene, and to be quite honest, I would much rather do the gay scene, but I'm not meeting my husband in a gay bar, am I? No. So yeah, I think it's quite hard when people say just get out there, and it's like, well, I've got no single friends to go out with. And when I did meet my best friend, who's 10 years younger than me, she is 10 years younger than me in age, but mentally she is about 10 years older than me. She has settled down, and she also isn't out, you know, looking for a husband. So I think it is quite hard if all your friends aren't single as well, and I totally get it, because I was in the same boat as that. And I was worried that all my friends were going to get sick of me being like, can we go out? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I didn't know at the time that I was going to meet the people that I met. And the people that I met are a group of lads, which is hilarious. And we knock around together, and it's nice that they're single, and it's nice that we get to go out and do things together that I wouldn't necessarily do with my friends that are in relationships. However, again, they're lads, and they don't want to be going to all the fancy cocktail clubs, what you want to be going to, where the single men are going. So I completely get this, and I think it's really hard to get out of the mindset of like, I don't go out, I work from home, I'm basically a social recluse. I used to say to my parents, like, thank God that we'd see the kids on a Wednesday, because I wouldn't see anybody in the week, because I worked at home and I was going through a really tough time, and I just didn't go out. And so for me, the only place I was meeting people was going to be on a dating app, and we all know my opinions on dating apps. And if you haven't listened to the episode that is called My Husband Is Not on Hinge, go back and listen to it, because I truly believe that my husband is not on Hinge, and I truly believe that your husband, if you're listening to this episode, probably isn't on Hinge, because you're probably listening to this episode because you are sick of dating apps and worried that you're not going to find your husband unless you go on to dating apps. And I think one of the most annoying pieces of advice that people can give you is, it will happen when you least expect it. Honestly, when you least expect it, when you're not concentrating on finding love, it will come into your life. And you think, how? Are they going to break into my house? Am I going to fall in love with my postman? My DPD driver? Amazon delivery guy? My Tesco food shop? The person that serves me on the counter? Like, that piece of advice and that piece of wise words or whatever is a load of bullshit. I hate it. It's so annoying. What you need to realize is I can't see how I'm going to meet somebody is completely different to there is nobody out there for me. Like, they are two completely different things. What you need to focus on is the part where you're saying to yourself, like, I can't see how I'm going to meet somebody, and not change that into I'm never going to meet somebody. It's not evidence. The fact that you can't think about where you're going to meet somebody doesn't mean there's nobody out there. You cannot predict your future. It's something that I go back to all the time. Nobody can predict their future. If you could predict your future, you wouldn't have been in the relationship that you were in. Trust me, if I could have predicted my future, I would have got out of that relationship a long time before he left me. And I think what's really interesting is that you will hear yourself say, and you will hear people say, wow, I never go out, so I'm never going to meet anybody. You've like shut that down completely in your brain. You've told yourself, because you're not out there, you're never going to meet somebody. Being unable to see how something pans out isn't evidence that it isn't going to pan out. And I think if you were to look at your life now and all the people that are in it now, currently, did you know some of those people 3 years ago? Did you know some of those people 6 months ago? Did you know some of those people 10 years ago? I can guarantee there are people in your life that you never ever thought that would come into your life. My closest friends, who I spend all my time with, are people that my ex doesn't even know. If these people came up to my ex in the street, he would not know who these people were. And that is how I knew that I was going to meet somebody, because I had never, ever, ever predicted meeting the people that I met following my breakup. And I would never have said that they were the people that I spend the most time with. The 3 people that are on my phone 24/7 are 3 people that didn't even know my ex. Didn't know me when I was in a relationship. And that isn't because I've had to completely destroy all my relationships from my previous life, because I lost a handful of people in my life that were mutual friends that decided that they were going to take sides with my ex. They were mutual friends that decided that they were going to take sides with my ex. Fine. I have had so many people come into my life that I would never have imagined even talking to. It's kind of like this weekend when I'm here, there and everywhere, and then I would like text my friend saying, are you out because of this so and so? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm coming back from here, let's meet in the pub for a drink. And they're like, yeah, okay, fine. This is a person that is so integrated into my life, part of my routine at the weekends. I didn't even know them 4 years ago. You just assume that your life in 5 years will look the same routines, the same people, same circumstances that you're going through. They won't. And I think sometimes you forget why you show up and listen to my podcasts. It's because I have a story that takes you from one end of healing to the other, and I am living proof that you can go through hell and come out the other end. My life looks completely different. And if you're in the middle of like healing and, you know, getting over a breakup, and you're thinking, well, I can't imagine my life being like that, Lou, like I can't see past it, then you need to open your eyes a little bit more. You need to know that, yes, okay, right now, you can't see how you would meet somebody, but in a year's time, you might be doing something completely different. I always say, like, you don't need to know the mechanism of how you're going to meet somebody. That is why I hate dating apps, because you are actively searching, and every single no becomes a rejection. Every single like person that doesn't message you back, it feels like rejection. Dating apps are the devil. I will not be told otherwise, and I will die on that hill. Dating apps make you feel 10 times worse. It is just another app that you can scroll on, and another app that makes you feel awful. At least on Instagram, you can change your algorithm, and you can make your algorithm suit your life now. Dating apps, you can't do that. And I think when you are dating with intention, but you are swiping on someone's looks, it doesn't add up to me. I will probably could have got a sponsorship from Hinge, Bumble, Tinder, Raya, all of them with what I do online, but I refuse because I don't like them. I think that when you meet somebody in an environment that you are in, you know you have common interests. You meet somebody at a festival, you meet somebody inside a club, you meet somebody at, I don't know, a tennis match, you meet somebody at a polo match, or, you know, the football. You share a common interest, you know you're there for the same sort of reasons, but you know that you're going to have something in common. But dating apps will make you feel like you have to control the search because you can't possibly meet somebody any other way. It's just not true. You do not have to believe it. And over on my Patreon, I'm going to talk more about manifesting people into your life and how you manifest people into your life, because without realizing, I manifested 3 incredibly important people in my life. And I hadn't realized just how much I needed them in a completely platonic, non-romantic way. And when I look back, of course, I manifested them. And if I could manifest 3 people, I can manifest 1. I know that. And I know that I spoke about this year being the year that I was going to meet my husband, and I think my life has just, again, turned on its head, and I've had a lot more opportunities come my way this year than I thought I would have. That my focus still has been on my business, but next year, who knows, we could be sat here manifesting a man together. I do talk about it on my Patreon. If you do want to go over there and have a listen to those episodes, then you know what to do. You know how to sign yourself up. I talk about it all the time. So how do you cope and how do you live your life whilst you're trying to figure out where you're going to meet this an amazing person that's going to come in and change the whole trajectory of your life? A lot of your anxiety will be coming from the fact that you are trying to predict your future on the life that you live now. Now, cast your minds back to when you were in a relationship. If me, the fairy godmother, turned up onto your doorstep and went, babe, 2 years' time, this ain't going to be your life, you would probably punch me in the face. And I was saying to you, no, how you're living your life now isn't how you're going to live in the future. And then fast forward 2 years, lo and behold, fairy godmother over here was right. You went through a big breakup. If you took your mindset of being in a relationship over to your new life and your new single life, you would not survive. You would constantly be looking back and thinking, I want my old life back. How do I get my old life back? I cannot live this single life because I'm so used to being in a relationship. Okay, fine. Fast forward a year into your breakup where you are living your life and it actually didn't kill you. How can you now think that you're not going to meet somebody because you physically cannot predict how your future is going to look like on the life you're living now? You can't. It's not a thing. You will end up looking around and saying to yourself, there's no one here. And correct, there might not be. The mistake you're making is that you are assuming that everybody that should be in your life forever is here and the doors are locked. And there's no way anybody else is going to get through these doors. There's no way you're going to meet anybody new. You have everybody in your life now, and that's it. Again, I am proof to tell you that that is not true. One person can come into your life, one person. You do not know how that one person is going to come into your life, but one person can come into your life and completely change everything for your entire future. Just one. And yet, somewhere along the lines, you've put these big walls up thinking, I've got everybody in my life. When I look around, there's no one in my life that I would ever imagine dating. And, well, this is it. I'm going to be single forever. Your job isn't to predict your romantic future. And like I said, I can really sympathise because I worked at home. I had a friendship group that was full of couples. I have a friendship group that's full of couples. None of my friends are single, and I'm currently not able to just flit around country to country because, like I said, it's expensive. And let's be real, you know, owning a house, running a car, birthdays, everything, it gets very expensive for one person when you're by yourself. Don't even get me started on single person tax. It does my head in. Why do you pay more on holiday? It just drives me insane. Anyway, I know what it feels like to think, oh my God, I'm never going to meet somebody. But trust me, all it takes is one person to come into your life. And it is not your job to work out how. I'm not going to sit here and say, go and sit in a new coffee shop every week, go and join a run club, go and join, you know, a pottery class, go and do this, go to a cycle class, go to a new gym, change your friendship circles. The more you think about doing that, the more you're trying to control it. You may as well just sit on a dating app. If you're going to think like that, you may as well sit on a dating app. And I think the most exciting thing is thinking, I don't know when it's going to happen. Like, that should be exciting, not scary. You should not be saying it's never going to happen. You should be thinking, oh my God, I need to get the most out of my life now because I don't know when this person's going to come into my life. And I always say that I do try and split out my sort of like manifesting universe type things out of these podcast episodes, or I do like to be able to give you a heads up that that's what it's going to be, because I know it's not for everybody and I know a lot of people don't believe it. However, if you think like that and you think, oh my God, I don't know when this is going to happen, so like, why am I sat down? Why am I not doing things? Because I'm not going to be able to do that when like my husband or my wife comes into my life. That stops you from thinking that your life and the current chapter that you are living is a waiting room. It stops you from thinking, when is this going to happen? Because I don't know. Like, it's so easy to get stuck in that rut. Being single today at 33 proves one thing to me. I am single today at 33. It does not prove that I'm going to be single when I'm 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. It proves that I am single today. Nothing else. But your brain will try and tell you, oh my God, this is danger, you know, uncertainty, you're going to be single forever. It's not the case. That is not a thing. That is not what you should be taking away from this time now. You should be thinking, oh my God, I have no idea when my husband's going to show up. This is so exciting. Or my wife. This is so exciting. You can love your life and still wish that you shared it with somebody. You can love being single, and you don't have to be that single person that's like, oh my God, I'm single and like this is the best thing ever. You don't have to say to every couple like, couldn't imagine, you know, being in a relationship. Oh my God, not on my terms. Like, absolutely not. You don't have to be that person. You can love your single life and be excited about finding love. You don't have to put your life on hold just because you don't have a partner. Your life doesn't need to revolve around meeting somebody. And not every social occasion has to become an occasion where you could potentially meet somebody. Yes, of course, like your eyes are more open to that sort of thing. But go to the weddings and be the single friend. Go to the events and be the single friend. You know, don't put pressure on yourself to actually bump into somebody, but stay open and be open, and it will radiate through you. The more that you say to people like, do you know what? I'm just really enjoying myself being single. And when it happens, not if, when. You know, change that vocabulary that you have. When it happens, it will happen, and I'll know, because it just takes one person to come into my life. And I wrote something down because I remember reading it. I don't know where I read it. I think it was in a book, and I wanted to leave you with this because I think it's quite powerful. And it was a lady, it was before she met her husband, and she said, I don't know who I'm going to meet. I don't know when I'm going to meet them. I don't know how, but I refuse to turn the years before it happens into years. I was simply just waiting for my life to begin. You are living your life now. You do not have to turn these years into a waiting room. You do not have to constantly be searching on a dating app for your husband. There is a huge difference between there is nowhere for me to meet somebody and I don't know where I'm going to meet somebody. There is a huge difference between those two things. And I will agree with you, you don't know when it's going to happen, but you need to stop using your life now to predict the whole of your life, because it's just not the case. Life is constantly changing. Your chapters are constantly changing. I don't have to say that. I'm probably talking to somebody who's gone through a huge breakup that they did not predict. You haven't missed out on love just because love hasn't happened on the timeline that you have given yourself. You have just been dealt this life, and there is a reason why you've been dealt this life. And when you are sat, when you are 80 years old, telling your children, wow, you're never going to meet somebody, you'll sit there and you'll think, God, there was a time in my life where I never thought I was going to meet somebody. Hopefully your advice would be different, because then you wouldn't end up like my poor mum being bashed on a podcast for telling me that I'm never going to meet somebody, or I don't know where I'm going to meet anybody because I'm not getting myself out there. When we came back from the wedding with my best friend, she was like, so what happened when we left? I was like, Mum, they were all in couples and I went to school with every single one of them, and me and my friend were the only two single people there. What did you want to know? She just laughed. She was like, oh, for God's sake. She just knows now. It's hilarious. I hope that episode has helped. Like I said, so many answers in that question box related to, I'm not going to meet somebody, I'm 35, I'm really struggling. So hopefully that has calmed your thoughts down to how I coped, and, you know, just being open-minded and knowing that no, your life currently at the moment, it might not look like you can let somebody in, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And the worst thing you can do is put a timer on it, because you will just wish these years of your life away. And the one thing I don't want you to do is wish these years of your life away, because if I'd have done that, I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living now. If you want more from me, go and head over to my Patreon, sign yourself up. If you want to know the goss on what people have been saying about my podcast, you know me, don't hold anything back over there, then sign yourself up. 2 extra episodes will go live this week. I had a break from Patreon last week as well, just because I was like content blocked out of my mind. If not, guys, I will see you next week. There is loads of newness coming over on my TikTok, so I'd be grateful if you went over there and followed me. If you're listening to this as a one-off episode and you've just managed to stumble upon this podcast, then please go and subscribe to my Spotify, my Apple, or if you found this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. It makes so much difference for me. It means that I can produce more content. I am going to be doing more over on my YouTube. I just need to find the time. If not, guys, you will catch me back here next Friday for your hours-long episode with myself, Lou. Look after yourself, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.